Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring something a little bit different, a little bit unsettling perhaps, but definitely fascinating. We're going to be looking at the world of AI.
But, and this is where it gets really interesting, we're going to be looking at it through the lens of some pretty old ideas. Ideas that many people thought were, well, debunked.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden these old concepts are back in the spotlight, and they're making us rethink what we thought we knew about technology and even about human nature.
Exactly. And the reason for this deep dive is a paper that really caught our eye. It's called The Return of Pseudosciences in Artificial Intelligence by Professor Jeremy Sublime.
You know, when I first saw that title, I was immediately intrigued. I mean, pseudoscience and AI, those two things don't exactly seem like they'd go together.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But the paper makes a really compelling case for how these seemingly disparate worlds are actually colliding in some pretty surprising and potentially troubling ways.
So give us the TL, Doctor, what's the core argument here?
Essentially, the paper is asking whether our quest to create these really powerful AI systems, systems that can recognize patterns and make predictions, has accidentally led to the revival of ideas that were discredited a long time ago.
Okay, now you've got to give me some examples. What kind of ideas are we talking about here?
Well, two of the big ones that the paper focuses on are physiognomy and Lombrosianism.
Physiognomy, Lombrosianism, those are some big words. Remind us what those are all about.
Sure. So physiognomy is the idea that you can tell someone's character or personality just by looking at their facial features.
Ah, so like if you have a strong jawline, you must be a strong-willed person, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And Lombrosianism takes that idea a step further and says that you can actually identify criminals based on their physical traits.
Whoa, that's getting into some pretty dangerous territory, like judging people before they've even done anything wrong.
Right, and that's precisely the concern that Professor Sublime raises in the paper.
So how is this even connected to AI? I mean, it seems like a pretty big leap from judging someone's face to building complex algorithms.
Well, here's where it gets a little bit technical. A lot of AI, especially what we call deep learning, is based on the idea of pattern recognition.
Okay, I've heard of deep learning. It's basically about teaching computers to learn from massive amounts of data, right?
Exactly. So you feed the AI a ton of information like images, text, or numbers, and it starts to identify patterns in that data.
Okay, so far so good. But how does that lead to pseudoscience?
Well, the problem is that these AI systems are really good at finding correlations,
Hmm.
but they don't actually understand causation.
So they can see that two things are related, but they don't necessarily know why they're related.
Exactly. It's like imagine an AI that's trained on a bunch of data about people who get sick,
Uh-huh.
and it notices that people who eat a lot of ice cream tend to get sunburned more often.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
The AI might conclude that eating ice cream causes sunburns, even though the real connection is that both of those things happen more often in the summer.
Right, so it's mistaking correlation for causation.
Precisely. And the paper argues that something similar could be happening with these AI systems that are being used to, say, predict crime or assess job applicants.
Ooh, that's scary. So they might be picking up on these spurious correlations and making judgments about people based on factors that aren't actually relevant.
Exactly. And because these AI systems are often seen as being objective and data-driven, it can be easy to overlook these potential biases.
Yeah, and once those biases are baked into the system, it can be really hard to root them out.
And that's where the danger lies.
Okay.
Because if we're not careful, we could end up creating a world where people are being judged and discriminated against based on factors that are completely outside of their control.
So what Professor Sublime is saying is that in our rush to embrace the power of AI, we might be accidentally resurrecting some really dangerous ideas from the past.
Exactly. It's like we're sleepwalking into a dystopian future without even realizing it.
Okay, now I'm officially freaked out, but also completely hooked. We need to dive deeper into these specific examples that the paper highlights.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some of the real-world AI applications that are raising these ethical red flags. Because believe it or not, there are companies out there that are already using AI to try to predict criminality based on someone's facial features.
Seriously, like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound like science fiction, but it's a reality we need to confront. And the paper goes into some really fascinating detail about how these systems are being developed and even deployed in some parts of the world.
I'm on the edge of my seat already. Let's get into it.
Okay, so one of the most striking examples that the paper cites is a company called Fiception.
Fiception. Never heard of them. What do they do?
Well, They claim to be able to use AI to analyze people's faces
Hmm.
and predict things like their personality traits, their intelligence, and even their propensity for criminal behavior.
Hold on, hold on. They're saying they can tell if someone is going to commit a crime just by looking at their face.
That's exactly what they're claiming.
Right.
And it's not just vivisection. There are other companies out there that are developing similar technologies.
Wow. Okay, my mind is officially blown, but this can't be legal, right?
Well, that's where things get really complicated, because the legal and ethical frameworks around AI are still evolving, and in many cases, they haven't caught up with the rapid pace of technological development.
So there's this kind of Wild West situation where companies are basically free to develop and deploy these systems without any real oversight.
In many cases, yes. And that's one of the things that makes this whole topic so urgent. Because we need to start having serious conversations about the ethical implications of these technologies before it's too late.
Okay, so we've established that there are companies out there that are using AI to try to predict crime based on people's faces. But how accurate are these systems? I mean, can they really tell if someone is going to commit a crime just by analyzing their facial features?
That's the million-dollar question. And the paper actually delves into some of the research that's been done on this topic.
Right, and what's the verdict?
Well, to put it bluntly, the evidence is far from conclusive.
So these companies are making some pretty bold claims that aren't really backed up by science.
It seems that way. And the paper actually highlights a number of studies that have found that these facial recognition systems are often no more accurate than chance.
Wait, seriously? So they're basically just guessing?
In many cases, it seems like it. And what's even more concerning is that these systems have been shown to exhibit significant biases, particularly against people of color.
Oh, man. This is starting to sound really bad. So, not only are these systems potentially inaccurate, but they could also be perpetuating racial discrimination.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be aware of these issues and to demand better from the companies that are developing these technologies.
Okay, I'm with you on that. But even if these systems were perfectly accurate, I still have some serious ethical concerns about them.
I hear you. There are some fundamental issues at play here that go beyond just accuracy. I mean, even if an AI system could predict with 100% certainty that someone was going to commit a crime, would we want to live in a world where people are preemptively punished based on an algorithm's prediction?
Absolutely not. I mean, that's straight out of Minority Report. And it raises some really profound questions about free will, privacy, and the presumption of innocence.
Precisely. And the paper really makes you think about those bigger picture questions. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about the kind of society we want to create.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about physiognomy and its connection to AI. What about Lombrosianism? How is that idea making a comeback in the age of artificial intelligence?
Well, remember that Lombrosianism is the idea that you can identify criminals based on their physical traits.
Huh?
And while that might sound like something out of the Victorian era, there are some disturbing signs that these ideas are starting to creep back into modern law enforcement.
Wait, are you saying that there are police departments out there that are actually using AI to profile people based on their physical appearance?
There have been some concerning reports of police departments experimenting with AI systems that claim to be able to predict criminality based on factors like facial features, body language, and even gait.
Seriously, that's like next level dystopian. It sounds like something out of a Philip K. Dick novel.
It does, doesn't it? And it's a stark reminder of how technology can be used to amplify our existing biases and prejudices.
Okay, so this whole AI and pseudoscience thing is starting to feel a lot less theoretical and a lot more real. What can we do about it? I mean, how do we ensure that AI is used for good and not for perpetuating these harmful ideas from the past?
That's the big challenge, isn't it? And there's no easy answer. But I think the first step is awareness. The more people who are aware of these issues, the more pressure we can put on policymakers, researchers, and tech companies to address them.
Right. We need to start having these conversations out in the open and shining a light on the potential dangers of AI. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Absolutely. And beyond awareness, we also need to think about regulation. We need to develop clear guidelines and ethical frameworks for the development and deployment of AI systems, especially in high-stakes domains like law enforcement and criminal justice.
Yeah, I'm all for regulation. We need to make sure that these technologies are being used responsibly and ethically, but I also worry that regulation can sometimes be slow to catch up with the rapid pace of technological innovation.
That's a valid concern, and that's why it's so important to have a multi-pronged approach. We need regulation, but we also need education, public awareness, and ethical guidelines that can help guide the development and use of AI in a more responsible direction.
So it's not just about stopping bad actors from using AI for nefarious purposes. It's also about ensuring that even well-intentioned developers are building systems that are fair, unbiased, and accountable.
Exactly. We need to be thinking about the ethical implications of AI from the very beginning of the design process, not just as an afterthought.
Okay, so we need awareness, regulation, and ethical guidelines. But are there any concrete steps that we can take as individuals to push for more responsible AI development?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful things we can do is to support organizations and initiatives that are working to promote ethical AI. There are a number of groups out there that are doing amazing work in this area.
Do you have any examples?
Sure. There's the AI Now Institute, which is a research institute at NYU that focuses on the social implications of artificial intelligence.
Okay, I've heard of them. They do some really great work on algorithmic bias and fairness.
Exactly. And there's also the Partnership on AI, which is a collaboration between some of the biggest tech companies in the world, including Google, Facebook, and Microsoft.
Wow, so even the tech giants are starting to take this stuff seriously.
It seems so, and that's a good sign. The Partnership on AI is working to develop best practices for ethical AI development and to promote public understanding of these technologies.
Okay, so there are some big players involved in this movement for ethical AI. That's encouraging.
It is.
Huh.
And I think it's a sign that we're starting to see a shift in the conversation around AI.
So it's not all doom and gloom. There's hope that we can steer AI in a more positive direction.
I think so. But it's going to take a lot of effort from all of us.
Well, I'm ready to do my part, and I think our listeners are too.
Me too. And I think one of the most important things we can do is to stay engaged, to keep learning, and to keep asking those tough questions about the role that AI is playing in our lives.
I love that. Stay engaged, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions. Sounds like a great motto for navigating the future of AI.
I think so too. And speaking of tough questions, there's one that's been on my mind ever since I started reading Professor Sublime's paper.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Well, he talks a lot about how the very way we evaluate AI systems can be misleading. Like, we often focus on metrics like accuracy, but that doesn't tell the whole story.
Right. We've talked about how accuracy can be a misleading metric, especially when it comes to things like crime prediction.
Exactly. So my question is, what are the right metrics? How do we evaluate AI systems in a way that truly captures their potential impact on individuals and society?
That's a good one. And it's a question that I think we're going to be grappling with for a long time to come.
I think you're right, and I'm not sure there's a single easy answer. But I think it's a question that we need to keep asking ourselves as we continue to develop and deploy these increasingly powerful AI systems.
Well said. And I think it's the perfect segue into the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, well, that's that.
We're going to delve deeper into the specific ways that AI systems are being evaluated and the potential pitfalls of relying on those traditional metrics.
I'm all ears. This is getting really interesting.
I know, right? It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, and each layer reveals something new and surprising.
And sometimes a little bit pungent.
Exactly. But that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. So, buckle up, listeners. We're about to go even deeper down the rabbit hole. Okay, so let's dig into this whole evaluation problem a little bit deeper. You mentioned that the way we typically evaluate AI systems can be misleading. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So, like you said, one of the most common ways to evaluate an AI system is to look at its accuracy. How often does it get things right?
Right. And on the surface, that seems like a pretty straightforward and sensible way to measure performance. But what's the catch?
Well, the catch is that accuracy can be a very superficial metric, especially when we're dealing with complex social problems like crime or poverty.
Okay, I'm starting to see what you mean. A system could be really good at predicting something in general, but still make some pretty serious mistakes when it comes to individual cases.
Exactly. And those individual mistakes can have real-world consequences. Like, imagine an AI system that's used to predict whether someone is likely to reoffend after being released from prison.
Uh-huh.
And let's say that system is 90% accurate. So that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, 90% seems like a pretty high success rate, but I have a feeling there's more to this.
There is. Because even with a 90% accuracy rate, that system is still going to get it wrong 10% of the time.
And in this case, getting it wrong could mean that someone who is actually a low risk to reoffend ends up staying behind bars.
Exactly. Or, on the flip side, it could mean that someone who was actually a high risk gets released and goes on to commit another crime.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how focusing solely on accuracy can be a problem. Are there any other metrics that we should be paying attention to?
Absolutely. Professor Sublime actually highlights a couple of really important metrics in his paper that are often overlooked.
Okay, lay it on me. What are they?
They're called precision and specificity, and they're kind of like the yin and yang of AI evaluation.
Yin and yang. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So precision is all about how good the AI system is at identifying true positives,
Meaning?
meaning out of all the cases that the AI system flags as positive, how many of them are actually true.
Got it. So if a system has high precision, that means it's not raising too many false alarms.
Exactly.
Huh.
Specificity, on the other hand, is about how good the system is at identifying true negatives.
So how often does it correctly identify the cases that should not be flagged?
Right. So a system with high specificity is good at avoiding false positives.
Okay, so precision is about minimizing false alarms, and specificity is about minimizing missed opportunities. Is that right?
You got it. And Professor Sublime argues that these two metrics, precision and specificity, are actually more important than accuracy when it comes to assessing the potential harm of an AI system.
Okay, that makes sense, because even if a system has a high overall accuracy rate, if it has low precision or low specificity, it could still be causing a lot of harm.
Exactly. And he actually uses a really interesting analogy to illustrate this point.
I love a good analogy. Hit me with it.
Imagine you're a doctor and you're trying to diagnose a rare disease,
Uh-huh.
and you have a test that's 99% accurate.
Wow, 99%. That sounds incredibly accurate.
Right. But here's the thing. The disease is so rare that only 1 in 10,000 people actually have it.
Okay, so even though the test is very accurate, the chances of any given person actually having the disease are still very low.
Exactly. So let's say you test 100,000 people.
Okay, bear with me. My math skills are a little rusty.
No worries.
Yeah.
So out of those 100,000 people, we know that statistically about 10 people will actually have the disease.
Right.
And because the test is 99% accurate, it will correctly identify 9 of those 10 people.
Great. So it's catching most of the cases.
But here's the catch.
Yeah.
Because the test is only 99% accurate, it's also going to misdiagnose 1% of the people who don't have the disease.
Okay, so out of the remaining 99,990 people who don't have the disease, it's going to incorrectly flag about 1,000 people as positive.
You got it. So even though the test is very accurate overall, it's still going to generate a huge number of false positives.
Wow, that's a lot of unnecessary stress and anxiety for those 1,000 people.
Exactly. And in some cases, those false positives could lead to unnecessary and potentially harmful medical interventions.
Okay, so I'm seeing how even a highly accurate test can be problematic if it has low specificity.
Right. And the same principle applies to AI systems.
Yeah.
We can't just focus on accuracy. We need to think about precision and specificity as well, especially when these systems are being used to make decisions that have a real impact on people's lives.
So how do we make sure that these AI systems are being evaluated properly? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of room for error, especially when we're dealing with these complex social problems.
You're absolutely right. And it's not just about the metrics themselves. It's also about the data that we're using to train and evaluate these systems.
Oh, right. We've talked about how data can be biased. And if the data is biased, the AI system is going to be biased too.
Precisely. And this is one of the biggest challenges in the field of AI right now. How do we create data sets that are truly representative and unbiased?
Yeah, it seems like an almost impossible task. I mean, all data is collected by humans, and humans are inherently biased.
It's a tough nut to crack, for sure. But there are some really smart people working on this problem, and there are some promising approaches out there, like using techniques from game theory to try to debias data sets.
Game theory. That's fascinating. I never would have thought of using game theory for something like this.
I know, it's pretty cool. And it's just one example of how researchers are getting creative and thinking outside the box to try to address these really complex challenges.
So it sounds like there's a lot of work to be done in the field of AI evaluation.
There is. But I'm actually really optimistic about the future. I think we're starting to see a real shift in the way that people are thinking about AI. And there's a growing awareness of the need to develop these technologies responsibly and ethically.
Okay, I like the sound of that. So what's next in our deep dive? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's time to tackle this whole idea of theory-free AI. The notion that these systems are somehow objective and neutral just because they're based on data. Yes. The myth of the unbiased algorithm. I've definitely heard that argument before. But something tells me it's not that simple.
It's definitely not. And Professor Sublime actually devotes a whole section of his paper to debunking this myth. He argues that all AI systems are inherently shaped by human values and assumptions.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into that. Let's shatter some myths. Okay, so this idea of theory-free AI, this notion that algorithms are somehow inherently objective and neutral, it's a pretty seductive idea, right?
Wow, absolutely. It's tempting to think that if we can just get the humans out of the equation, if we can just let the data speak for itself, we can somehow achieve perfect objectivity.
Right. Like algorithms don't have biases or prejudices, so they must be better at making decisions than we are.
But as Professor Sublime points out, that's a dangerous oversimplification. I
Well,
mean, think about it. Even the choice of what data to use to train an AI system is a human decision. So there's already bias baked in from the very beginning. Like, if you're training an AI to predict crime and you only feed it data from certain neighborhoods, you're already skewing the results.
exactly. And it goes beyond just the data itself. The very algorithms that we use, the mathematical models that underpin AI, they're also designed by humans.
So the algorithms themselves could be reflecting the biases of their creators.
Right. And even something as seemingly simple as choosing which features to include in a model, like age or gender or zip code, that's a human decision that can have a huge impact on the outcome.
So it's like even if the algorithm itself is neutral, the way it's used can still introduce bias.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have people from diverse backgrounds involved in the development of AI systems. We need to make sure that those systems are being designed with a wide range of perspectives in mind.
Okay, so we've busted the myth of theory-free AI, but what about data curation? Can't we just clean up the data, make sure it's representative and unbiased, and then we're good to go, right?
Well, data curation is definitely important. I mean, we need to make sure that the data we're using to train these AI systems is as accurate and representative as possible.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Exactly. But even the most meticulously curated data can still contain hidden biases.
Hmm.
I mean, our world is full of systemic inequalities, and those inequalities are inevitably reflected in the data we collect.
So it's like even if you try to remove all the explicitly biased data points, there might still be subtle patterns and correlations that reflect those underlying social biases.
Precisely. And those subtle patterns can still be picked up by AI systems, leading to discriminatory outcomes.
Okay, so data curation is important, but it's not a silver bullet.
Right. It's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And we need to be thinking about bias at every stage of the AI development process, from data collection to model design to deployment and monitoring.
So it's like a constant vigilance, always being on the lookout for potential biases and trying to mitigate them.
Exactly. And it's not just a technical challenge, it's also a social and ethical challenge. We need to be having conversations about what kind of world we want to live in and how we can use AI to create a more just and equitable society.
I love that. It's not just about building better algorithms, it's about building a better future.
Exactly. And I think that's a really powerful message to take away from this deep dive. AI is a powerful tool, but it's just that, a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
It's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
I completely agree. We have a responsibility to make sure that AI is used in ways that benefit all of humanity.
Well said. And I think that's the perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of AI and pseudoscience. It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation.
I've really enjoyed it, and I hope our listeners have too.
I hope so too. And if you're as intrigued by this topic as we are, we encourage you to check out Professor Sublime's paper, The Return of Pseudosciences in Artificial Intelligence. It's a real eye-opener, and it's sure to spark some lively discussion.
Absolutely. It's a must-read for anyone who wants to understand the complex ethical and social implications of AI.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of ideas.